All right, XRP. So I was anticipating like a little bit of a drop on this one as well, just because of we were just, we're just ranging here. So we did sweep this high on Friday, last Friday, and then we came back down. We're just building up in the beginning of this zone. I have an alert right below this area right here because I was anticipating with the FOMC that they came below here, swept those lows, and then went higher. Still is a possibility. This is also the low of the monthly candle right here. So, um, I don't see this candle turning bearish this month. I just don't see it. I'm going with that momentum to the upside. So I'm sticking to the momentum. Don't It's pointless to go against it. Now, if it does turn bearish, then it's cool. I mean, at the end of the day, I do still think this is on a nice macro trend. Like this is just the market's not gonna top out like this. It's not. So worst case would be that it swept that low, but I don't see that happening. We'll see. We have another, 13 days in this month as well. Bottom of the previous weekly candle is right here. So we're also bullish on the weekly, as you can see. And for the weekly candle to turn bearish, we would need to be below $3.02, which we keep hitting that, but we keep going higher. And yeah, the weekly candle low, that's a far range. So I do this everything looks bullish basically, even from the weekly time frame. The momentum is pushing to the upside. Now, if we go down to the lower time frames, we could see a little bit of more details over here. We could see that, with the FOMC news, basically we got to push into this zone and we got a rejection back into this zone. And now we're getting a push once again. So if we could break these highs and then make higher lows and continue higher, that's what we would love to see. So then we could start pushing higher towards, you know, th- uh, basically the next short-term target would be above this high right here, short term, right here. The same way we sweep above this high and retrace a bit is likely what's going to happen here. So we'll probably hit around 340 to 350 and probably cool down a bit unless XRP just goes. But at this point, you want to go over possible scenarios because, these conditions have been very tricky this time around, but it is still pretty clear. When you stick to the macro, it makes things way easier. Trust me. But yeah, we'll see. I'm not gonna count this out just yet, even if we just sweep this low and go slightly below three, but that doesn't really matter. I just understand that, the market still is on a nice trend, and XRP has been a champ this whole cycle. It's been holding up extremely well. Yeah, and it just I think is gonna continue to perform. And then once we finally go above these prices, we'll step into price discovery. And I believe we should head. I'm still sticking to what I've been saying this whole time. At the end of the day, we've just been consolidating for the most part, but I'm still waiting for anywhere between $4 to $6 at a minimum. And maybe, just maybe it could happen in the next couple of weeks. If we get some movement to close this week off, yeah, it's possible. Like let's say this weekly candle closes at 340. Look at that. Then we'll have two weekly candles left, I believe, in 2020, I mean in September. Yeah, so we'll have around two. And we could still have one of those candles go towards that $4 to $4.50 range. So it still is a possibility that we close above $4, but they have definitely kept these prices suppressed. And this may be a catalyst as to why the market is going to possibly extend just a bit into 2026, whether it's just 1 month or maybe just 2 months. I'm not saying we're going the full year. I don't believe that. Yeah, right as of right now, I would not believe that. So, I'm gonna focus on the macro candles. That's how I'm gonna do it. And once we're above, like let's say we do get a nice push at the end of 2025, and then in 2026 we get another push above the previous yearly candle. SHX, so SHX has been looking pretty decent, still holding up. I do still believe we're headed towards this all-time high at 5 cents. That's like a magnet. I have not changed my stance on that, so I do believe we should be headed towards that 5 cent range, and we'll probably cool down here again before continuing higher. So, maybe we hit 5 to 6 cents and then we come back down between 3 and 4, right? So remember, to make it to these higher levels, you have to be patient, as you guys have seen, I'm playing a big macro picture. I'm literally swinging over here. Like, I still have positions. Yeah, I've taken some profits over here, and yeah, we're still holding a large position of our holdings that we bought over here and over here and over here and over here. And I believe, I'm not sure about over here, but definitely stacked all throughout these ranges. And now we're just riding the wave, and we're eventually going to exit. Once the market starts telling us it's a good time to exit. All right, so yeah, SHX, I do still believe that this is headed towards that 5 cent range. I like how this is looking. The fact that if you SHX has been ahead of a lot of assets this cycle, right? So it's usually, it might dip before others and it might start running before others as well. So, that's something to pay attention to. And this one's had a nice little push last week, and now then it had a retracement to end the week, and now slowly we're picking back up. And as you can see, whenever SHX is starting to slowly pick back up, it's usually starting that next trend higher. So yeah, we're likely headed towards that 5 cent range next, in my personal opinion, and everything's still lining up. The worst case I could see over here is maybe they sweep these lows right here before continuing higher. So, just be aware of different scenarios, but that does not change the macro trend. All right, Velo. So, I like how Velo's looking. We had some pretty good movement last week, and then going into this week, we got a little bit of a retracement. It's retesting these areas over here. So I like that it's finally, you got to look at how, price comes into a zone, comes out of it, and what it's touching. So we came back down into the zone. I told y'all we should be moving out of here. It's just playing ping pong at the end of the day. As long as it's not just free falling, as long as it's reacting, that's a good sign. Just like some of these other assets, yes, they keep making lows, but they are reacting, which is a good signal. So, I do like this. I do want to see Velo finally get above, these ranges over here, because it gets to a point where, if we cannot push through these areas, then they may be stacking, getting ready to bring it to the downside again. So, you know, the fact that the whole market is bullish, the main assets, the top assets, and then the fact that Velo has held up very, very well, and also the fact that this has been accumulating since, like, look, it made a low over back in April, and we haven't went below that low. So like, those are things you just can't ignore, like we made a low in April, we made another low in June. These were the bottom, this was the bottom of the market. We ended up making another bottom in September over here, like another higher low, and as you can see, it's building up. So a low, a higher low, a high, another higher low down here. So we got to see. As of right now, this is the low in control. So we would not want to see price go below there, because that would then consider that, that the higher lows are weakening and the trend that may be shifting. So as of right now, we want to continue this trend to the upside, and we'll see what type of reaction we can get to close this week off. But I do like the fact that, these levels are holding, because, this was a very crucial area that I did want to see the market react to this range once again. But price action has definitely been stubborn in 2025. So I do think Velo is going to be a late bloomer. I do think it's a wild card, but I do think it still will perform.